Hello and welcome to Three Peaks Podcast, where we take a break from the hike of life and appreciate the views. Today we have a very special guest, Jeanette Bennett. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and congratulations on creating this format. I'm excited to be part of it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Since you're a publisher, right, you have your own magazine company, which is fantastic. I'm so glad you made that. So what made you want to be a publisher? Like, what inspired you?
When I was a little girl, I used to play journalist. So my older sister would play school and create this like fake classroom and fake students and just pretend she was teaching them. And I would write these newspapers, with fake news. And I just really loved the idea of putting together stories and sending it out there for people to read and share. And the first thing I wrote was in third grade. I thought that the lady that worked in the lunchroom, that I wanted to interview her and tell her story. And so I interviewed her for our school newspaper. And that was the first thing that I wrote. And it was just really thrilling to feel like I got to tell someone's story and that more people would know about her because of what I wrote. And so it became really my life passion and my life mission ever since then.
That's great.
Yeah.
And like you said, you did the school's newspaper. Would you say that kind of corresponded to what drove you to do what you are doing now?
Absolutely. So that first little thing I wrote was in third grade. And then in junior high, we had a yearbook. And I thought that fit me really well because that was a way of sharing stories and organizing ideas and facts and words. And so I worked on the yearbook staff and was the editor in junior high. And then in high school, we had a really good student newspaper. I went to high school in Idaho. And so I pursued that and was our editor of that newspaper. And in fact, won a national award and got to fly to New York to go to pick up my award. And then when I went to college, I just kept staying on that trajectory of being involved in media. My job in high school was working at the local TV station. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, low on the totem pole. I ran the cameras and did little errands and things. But I just love this idea of putting together, gathering the news and then figuring out how to share it in a way that other people would find exciting. And so when I went to college, I feel like I was really lucky because a lot of people go to college and they don't know what to major in. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I already had figured out what I enjoyed and what really lit me up inside. And so I just stayed on that trajectory, worked at the newspapers in college. So that was my college job and also what I earned my degree in. And so I feel really lucky that I just knew from a pretty young age. And often I'll tell people that what you enjoyed to do as a kid is a really good clue as to what you might be good at later in life too, because those are your innate qualities, whether you're curious. And if you're someone who can work on a Lego set for a really long time, that says a lot about you. You might be good at engineering or math or really detailed tasks, and if you like to perform, well, you're someone who might be a good presenter or good in marketing, so who we are as children is really who we're going to be in a lot of ways our whole lives.
Yeah. And that must have been an amazing journey to go upon. Has there ever been any challenging moments in continuing with your passion in your career?
Mm-hmm. Of course, there really have been, because when we started the business, so the first magazine we did was in September 2000. So it'll be 22 years this fall. And along the way, there have been a lot of challenges. I mean, when we started, the internet existed, of course, but it wasn't like it is today. It wasn't something that was so robust. And smartphones hadn't come out yet. Social media didn't exist. And so all of those innovations have been amazing, but they've also presented some challenges for someone who's in a print publishing world, right? Mm-hmm. Because now people want to get their news, yes, in a print form, but also quickly in a digital format. So that's been a challenge for sure. Mm-hmm. And then just balancing my career with my family has been challenging at times because I want to give my all to everything. And so at times there's some hard choices. And, some of our projects haven't worked. We've had to make some hard decisions at times. We've started multiple magazines and some of them have worked and been great. And others of them, we've had to admit that was a failure. And those are hard moments, to realize that idea that you thought was amazing actually wasn't amazing. So a lot of those types of things have happened through the years.
Right. So you mentioned like giving your all. What does giving your all mean to you? Like what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first way you might think of it is giving it all your time. And that is true. But I also think giving it all of your heart is really more what I mean. So doing it to the best of your abilities. So I want to make magazines that are as good as I can do them. And I don't just want to get it done and cross it off the list. There might be times maybe in schooling for you guys or different things when you're like, okay, what's the minimum? How can I get this done? And I don't want to be someone who says, yeah, what's the minimum? I want to be like, what would make it amazing? And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it amazing. And when I'm my best self, I want to bring that to the magazines and also to my family and to my other hobbies and pursuits. I want to give it my whole heart and not try to minimize it or make it finish it by doing it the most simple way, but by doing it the best way, And so I guess that's what I mean by giving it my all.
And I really like how you like delivered that and just saying like giving it your all is the best way anyone can do anything. And so I just wanted to ask you, who have been some of your mentors in your life?
So that's a great question. The first one that comes to mind actually doesn't really have to do with journalism. She was an older woman in my neighborhood named Isla Mae, and she played the organ and wanted me to play the organ. And so she was pretty bossy actually and said, you're going to play the organ. I'm going to come pick you up and take you and make you learn. And she taught me how to play the organ. And it's been really cool to be able to do that in my life. And one day I told her, hey, I want to start a magazine. And she said, I'll be your first subscriber. And she wrote a check for $10 to be our very first subscriber. And that was huge for me, because even that $10, it doesn't go very far, right? You can't print very many magazines with that. But it gave me the confidence that maybe other people would subscribe to. Yeah. And so she was a really good mentor for me that way. Also, there have been some women in the community that have shown me how to balance family and business. One of those is Corinne Clark. And she has a really big heart, and she's been a CEO of several companies. And I've really looked to her for advice on several things. She and I also each went through a cancer journey. She went through hers, fought cancer and beat it. And then I got diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago. And she was like the first person to call and be like, okay, you're going to beat it. This is how you got to go after it. And so she was a really great mentor that way. I also really like to read biographies of all types of people. I find people really fascinating. And so, anybody's life story that I read inspires me. I've recently been really interested in Harriet Tubman and what she did during the Civil War to rescue slaves. And then she also worked on women's suffrage to help women get the right to vote. And I just thought she is awesome. Like no one told her to do that. No one was really motivating her. She just had this like inner desire to make a difference. Yeah. And so I find a lot of strength in mentoring from people in history like her.
And when you said like you had a friend with you that has gone through an experience that you have gone through, for teenagers and young kids, how important is it for us to have a person like that in our lives?
I think it is essential, because you never want to feel like you're going through life alone. And the thing is, I don't think any of us really want or need someone to tell us everything to do and to make all of our decisions for us. In fact, sometimes as a teenager, I was the kind of person that if someone told me what I had to do, sometimes that made me not want to do it. I didn't always want to be bossed around, but we all need someone to be able to talk through our lives with. And hopefully we have close relationships with our parents or our siblings. I also think it's great to have people in that are ahead of you in life, a decade or two or more, that can just give you support and to help you think through things. And on days when you think, oh, the world's ending because I didn't get into this college I wanted, or I wasn't the valedictorian I wanted to be, or whatever, that person can say to you, hey, I'm sorry, but you're going to be okay. you know? And so I think we all need those people in our lives. And how do you find them? I don't know. I think you've got to be willing to open up, you know? Sometimes it just takes that first step of, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Do you have any advice for me? I think people actually really enjoy giving advice and mentoring others, but it just takes that first step of opening the door to start that conversation. And you as young people can do that. And of course, older people can too, but I think it's almost more valuable when a young person comes up to someone and says, I'd really like to learn from you. I think that's cool.
Yeah, making friends is really important to the development of younger people. But one thing that is happening right now is that the consumption of social media is degrading the social experience for younger generations. But at the same time, it is also used as a positive spot for generations to communicate with their friends and family. But it's very difficult for them to spend the time in order to like actually be in contact with loved ones. So what is your opinion on the usage of social media with younger generations?
Right. You know, sometimes parents like to say to their teenagers, I know what you're going through, but the truth is we really actually don't know what it's like to grow up with social media. You know, I was a mom with, you know, a few kids before social media started. And so I don't know what it's like for you guys. I can only imagine the difficulties. I think social media has a lot of benefits, but it's a dangerous thing. You know, it's kind of like fire. Fire has so many benefits, right? We can cook on it and it keeps us warm. It's also really dangerous. It can destroy your home. It could, you know, really, it could kill you, you know, and burn you. And so, and social media, I feel like is like that. Because I feel like if students don't participate in social media at all, they do miss out on a lot of conversations. And they do miss out on some of the camaraderie that can really bring people together. And so my children use social media, and we try to talk about, you know, healthy ways to use that. I think that the biggest, well, there's two main problems I see with social media. One is the amount of time that gets wasted on it. And so if there's a way of either putting in a time limit in your mind or literally putting one on your phone where your app only works for however many minutes a day, I think that can be helpful. So the time wasting part is something to really be aware of. Secondly, and this is maybe especially for girls, but, you know, boys and girls, you know, everybody, is the comparison, is looking at other people and thinking, oh, I'm not as good, I'm not as thin, I'm not as popular, my dress isn't as pretty, everyone went to prom but me. And that's really tricky. And so I think that when you open up social media, it's good to like go in with an intention and say, I'm just going to go see, you know, what a few of my friends are doing and maybe even these few accounts, and then I'm going to hop off. I also would encourage youth not just to consume social media, but to be a creator, which I love that you're doing that, because I think that changes the experience too. If you're going on there, not just to see what everybody's doing, but to share your own thoughts and to use it as a platform to spread whatever message you have in mind, then that's an amazing way to use social media, you know, to be a creator instead of just a consumer.
So you mentioned that you're a mother. So I was wanting to get this from your perspective. Why do you think it's important for kids and teens and maybe even adults to focus on their mental health and taking care of themselves?
You know, I think that's one of the blessings of COVID. COVID was awful, and, you know, it stole some of your high school years and things, and that's really, really hard. But I think it also opened up a dialogue about mental health that hadn't been there before, at least not as much of a dialogue, where we realize, hey, life is hard, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to help each other. I think that's been one of the gifts of COVID. I think it's really important to understand what your feelings are. One thing we started in my family, and it's kind of funny, but it also has value to it, is we say out loud whatever emotion we're feeling. So sometimes if I'm telling like a really long story, my kid will go, bored, you know, so they're just kind of teasing me. But other times, you know, my kids will just be like, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm, I'm frustrated. And then once we say those emotions, we can start dealing with them, or sometimes even just saying, hey, I hear you. That's frustrating. Even though I can't solve everything for them, but just to acknowledge it, I think it helps people not feel alone. So I think that's one thing we all need to realize, of all ages, is to acknowledge the things we're actually feeling. So I know at times I've been someone who, like, I just eat, whether I'm happy, sad, frustrated, stressed, I just eat. And I put a sign on my pantry once that was like, what's your true emotion? Because if you're, because if I'm not hungry, I shouldn't be eating, like, what if I'm feeling stressed? Well, let's like attack the task, or let's go for a walk and not just look at food to solve all of my problems.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to just acknowledge that. I also feel that spending some time in meditation, like with everything off, no screens, no outside influences, just really good breathing and really good thinking is really important. And also, I think prayer. I mean, not everybody is religious, and prayer can take different forms, but I feel like connecting to a higher power and speaking out your feelings and expressing gratitude, and also expressing your needs and hopes and desires, I think that's a really valuable practice to implement into your day, morning and night. So I think taking time for ourselves is so important. I think I learned that later in life, because when I was a teenager, I think I thought my worth came from accomplishment and my GPA and all of that. And I've had to kind of unlearn that and realize those accomplishments are great, but that's actually not who I am. Who I am is just this person, and accomplishments come and go. And so I need to take care of this person. And that was another gift of the cancer journey I went through, is I realized I really have to prioritize getting enough sleep, getting the right nutrition, getting the right exercise, because I'm the only me, and if I don't take care of me, I can't take care of everything else. And so I've been doing better at that. So as young people, if you can learn that lesson, and to always take care of yourself and take time for yourself, you'll be so far ahead of so many of us adults who didn't learn that young.
Yeah, and a lot of teenagers find a lot of relaxation in extracurricular activities, like in a sport they could enjoy,
right,
or hanging with their friend.
And I really liked what you were saying with like feeling like your true emotion and something like that. And I feel like with teens, we kind of have a struggle of holding our emotions inside and just keeping to ourselves. So what advice would you give to teenagers on just letting it out and just let it be?
So one of the things to consider is journaling. And that could be pen on paper. It could be taking a note on your phone. For some people, it's drawing, really kind of drawing their day or drawing their feelings, or whether it's with lettering or with actual pictures. I think it's really helpful to go through that process of getting the thoughts out of your head and onto a paper or onto your phone or through art supplies. I think that's a way to really process and open up. And some people are more verbal, right? Like some people, have you noticed that some of your friends or relatives want to talk on the phone, and other people would prefer to text, right? And that doesn't make anybody right or wrong. It's just a preference, right? And so that there will also be preferences in how to process feelings and stories of the day. So not everybody's going to want a journal, but for some people that is so valuable. And once you get it down, then it kind of takes the stress and the anxiety out of it, because you put it in on the paper and you're like, oh, well, that's all it is. I can handle that. I also think it's important to journal when things go wrong and also when things go right. And so when you're going through hard times, you can look back at what you've written and be like, oh, I've been through hard things before. Life didn't end. People don't hate me. Everything resolved over time. So we can learn a lot from ourselves, actually, from our past selves. The more that we write down our lessons learned and the things that we thought and the processes we went through to get to our conclusions.
And every single day we're learning from our mistakes. So that is truly awesome. So I heard that you also have some involvement with UVU, and we were wondering if you could tell us more about that.
Yes. And so I went to college at BYU, and I didn't go to UVU, but I started Utah Valley Magazine 22 years ago. And throughout the 22 years, we've written about UVU a lot. We've done several cover stories. I've interviewed every president multiple times, and written about a lot of their events and their athletes. And so over time, I got asked to sit on different boards and speak at their entrepreneurial series, which I've been really happy to do. 3 years ago, they awarded me an honorary doctorate. In fact, it's right there. It was one of my proudest days. And then last year I got asked to be on the board of trustees, which is really exciting. And so we meet once a month, and also have other things throughout the month. But once a month, we look at the university's finances. We go over some of the major decisions. We look at tenure for professors. We look at what majors and minors to offer. And we pick graduation speakers, a lot of things like that. And it's been really exciting for me because UVU is the largest university in the state.
Yeah.
And I like being part of this university that's very exciting. There are a lot of programs there that are becoming really well known in the nation. Yeah. And also the president of UVU, Astrid Tuminez, is really dynamic, has an amazing background, and a really great personality and leadership style. And so I'm learning a lot from working with her. And so that's been a really fun part of my life. I really enjoy that. I was there a couple nights ago. We had an awards banquet for some of the janitors and some of the teachers, and we gave out about 10 awards. And it just really fills my soul to be part of something so wonderful in this community.
And UVU is doing such a great job with continuing to further the exploration of younger people. For high school, there are accessible forms of extracurricular college classes that a student could take to receive college credits from UVU.
Right, absolutely. Have the three of you participated in that and benefited from that?
Yeah.
See, that's so smart. And UVU has a lot of hidden gems like that. I don't know that it's that hidden, but a lot of people don't realize the many things and programs that UVU has created through the years that help, you're right, high school students, college students, also continuing ed students. So older people like me who might want to take just some community classes. So it plays a really big role in this community. There's also amazing events every week with speakers, forums, performances that bring people to the university. So it's awesome. I'm a big UVU fan.
Yeah. The president is so lovely. She's so nice. So do you, in your opinion, do you think education is getting better? Because since you're a mother and of course your kids have gone to school, so what do you think about that?
So I think education is so important. And, there are some people, some entrepreneurs even, who will say, college, that's old fashioned. Okay. Yeah. I do not think that at all, because an education is for a lot of reasons. It is, yes, it's to learn facts and to take tests and all of that. It's also to start your network. So I was surprised when I was in college. I didn't look at my classmates and think, we're going to be working together the rest of our lives. But in reality, a lot of the people in my program that were in the communications program, we continue to cross paths throughout our lives. And so I loved being in college, being around my peers who were interested in the same things, and having us get to know each other. And through the years, they've applied for jobs with me, I've applied for jobs with them. And it was a great way to start to get to know people in the professional world. I also found that some of my professors became great mentors, which was awesome. And it's a great social place to be. When you're a young adult, a college environment is a really great place to be. And so I think college is so important for a variety of reasons, with a degree being only one of the reasons. There are many reasons to have the college experience.
And so you were talking about how you've been working with UVU, and I heard that you founded like a Utah Valley magazine. Is that correct? So I was just wondering, how did it come about?
Yeah. So it's not associated with Utah Valley University. It's its own thing. But in the year 2000, so 22 years ago, we started what's called Utah Valley Magazine, and it's a community publication. It comes out every other month, so 6 times a year. And we feature the people, the places, the homes. We give a list of what are the must-do events this month, where we highlight a lot of UVU events, for example. And we do a lot of fun things. The issue we're working on right now, we're highlighting high school students who will change the world. And we pick one student from each high school and highlight their experience and let them give advice to incoming high school students and to parents, because I think teens give really good advice. And so it's been a really fun thing. We've written cover stories on lots of people, governors, musicians like Donny Osmond, Neon Trees, and Lindsay Sterling was on our cover. Lots of fun people like that, some athletes. And so it's been great. And then we also have a business magazine called Business Q, and we have Utah Valley Bride and some other publications.
And probably running a publishing company is a little bit difficult. Is there any normal or very aggressive challenges that come along with the job?
So people always think that coming up with the story ideas is the hard part, and that's not true. Like, coming up with the story ideas is so fun, and we'll never run out of story ideas because we'll never run out of interesting people. There are so many great people, and the community is growing. And so we'll always have people to write about. The hardest part is the business side of it. And so our business model is we sell advertisements in the magazine. We also sell magazines on newsstands, and we sell subscriptions. So those are the 3 main ways that people pay us to make magazines. And so that part is a challenge, selling the ads and selling the subscriptions, and then collecting that money after they sign up has also been a little bit challenging. But we have a great team. There are only about 12 of us, so it's a pretty small staff, but we all have been together and working for a long time. A lot of my employees have been there for 15 plus years. And so we know what we're doing, and I feel like we've gotten pretty good at it. And but that's the hardest part, is just the business side of it. And because my background was in journalism, not business necessarily, I've learned the business side of it, and the journalism part comes really naturally, and it's with high enjoyment that I do the interviews and write the articles.
I love that. So you do a lot of charity work, am I right? That's great. Why do you think it's important to do charity work?
One thing that I've noticed with the businesses that I've written about is some of the businesses in this community that have had the greatest success also really emphasize giving back. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that one of the great laws of the world is that when you give, you get back. It's karma. You know, there's lots of different words for it, but it's basically that idea of what you send out in the world comes back to you. And so businesses that are generous, they tend to thrive. And so I've tried to implement that in my life as well, and to be generous with my time. And so I've sat on a lot of nonprofit boards. This year, I'm also the chairperson of Utah Philanthropy Day, which happens in November. And we honor nonprofits and volunteers and donors with a big event and a big broadcast. And so that's been one way that I've been able to give back, is by working with those nonprofits. I also, just having written about the community and knowing it so well, I see the different needs that are here. And then once I see a need, if I feel that I have the power to help them, I want to. And so I've been part of United Way of Utah County. My family, we work on the Sub for Santa program every year, where families can apply to be part of the Sub for Santa program if they have a need. And then people in the community help buy and donate. And then we coordinate delivery to get them the Christmas presents. Anyway, it's a really beautiful program. And so that's one of the things that we're involved in every year. And then I donate pages in the magazine for worthy causes that I think people should know about. And I also speak at a lot of events like that too. So, you know, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not this really wealthy person, but I give in the ways that I can, which is writing about them in the magazine, supporting them, letting people know about them, and volunteering my time. So I think it's important to be the type of person that figures out ways to give. And for some people, it's money, that's what they can give. And other people, it's time, and throughout our lives, maybe it'll be a little bit of both. But I think it's really important to be someone who gives back. I think it shows appreciation.
Yeah, I love that. Like how you said that, like if they don't have their own voice or don't want to share their own voice, you do it for them, you just help them have a voice. That's lovely. I love that.
Thanks.
So what are some ways that like people can like get to know where to do charity at, or like where to do it?
Yeah, so in our community, the United Way of Utah County is a really good organization that connects to a lot of other organizations. So that's a good place to start. I'm also helping with an event that's going to be at probably Thanksgiving Point in June. And it's going to be a place where the different charities will come. It's sort of like a carnival, but the booths are nonprofits and places you can volunteer. And so families will be able to come and see all the different ways that they can serve. And so that's going to be exciting. And I can keep you posted when I have all the date and have all the information about it. I also think just like reading Instagram feeds, reading newspapers, because they still do get printed, and seeing if there are volunteer opportunities listed. I think that's really great. There's places that take volunteers, like Thanksgiving Point takes volunteers, Freedom Festival takes volunteers, and like the aquarium, a lot of these fun places have a volunteer program, and it's a great place to meet people and also give back.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So thank you so much for allowing charities to be put up and helping a lot of people. But do you have any charities that are upcoming that you'd like to share with our viewers?
So one of the ones that has been kind of cool lately is Utah Valley Refugees. So that was started by a refugee himself, Leonard, and we just wrote about him in our last issue. And he has developed kind of a network of resources to help people who arrive here in Utah as refugees. And it's really neat because there are a lot of people in our community who've been blessed with finances and homes with basements that are empty and things like that. And what he does is he helps connect people who need those services to people who would like to give. And so Utah Valley Refugees is something that I'm excited about right now. The Roots of Humanity Foundation is another cause that I'm excited about. They do stained glass to help tell stories. So at UVU, actually, there's the Roots of Knowledge. It's a 200-foot big stained glass piece. It's the same artist, Tom Holdman, who is raising money to do stained glass art projects for the United Nations and for developing nations to help capture really the stories and the history of the world. And so people can volunteer to work on his glass art projects, or they can donate to his glass art projects. So that's something that I think is really cool. The Food and Care Coalition in Provo, they need a lot of food donations, and also you can volunteer to help people there that come in and need food services. Tabitha's Way is another one that I'm really excited about. There's a food drive this weekend. I don't know when people will watch this, but this weekend there's a food drive, and they take collections all year round. And Tabitha's Way is a really awesome food pantry that has a system of helping people and also helping them get on their feet. Because we don't just want to help people solve a problem for today. We want them to see the way out of poverty and to have some processes and a pathway forward, because people really want.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, are we back? Oh, yes. Sorry, our feed log started buffering there for a second.
Sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
But yeah, you were saying?
I was talking about Tabitha's Way. Did you hear that part?
Yes. Yeah.
So Tabitha's Way is a food pantry. There's one in Spanish Fork and American. And they do such a good job of helping people with a need for food. And so I'm really happy that exists. And Tabitha's Way is funded and run by some people who were really successful in the business world and then wanted to give back. And there are so many people like that in this community that see a need and they're like, I think I have a way to help, and then they start something that helps other people. And I love that.
So with charity work, some people might think it's a little boring or something like that. Do you think there's a little bit of an element of creativity that people should try and put into their charities to make people more interested and wanting to kind of like just get out there, I would say?
Right. And, I think everything can be fun. And I think the best thing that we can bring to life, something that should be on our packing list every day of our lives, is a good attitude. And when you're serving, whether you're volunteering at Tabitha's Way or the United Way or Food and Care Coalition, if you come in and you're smiling and you're friendly, it changes just the whole feeling of the whole place. Both people that come that need services and other people who are volunteering. And so I think that's something that young people can really help us out with, because they do have so much energy and a great sense of humor and all that. Yeah. So when young people volunteer, they lift the spirits of everybody in the room, because some people, I'll be 50 in a few years. Like as we get older, sometimes we get more tired and we get quieter and maybe more grumpy, but young people can really bring that excitement back. And so we need you. We need all ages of people to work on society's problems.
Yeah. And I feel like teenagers and like younger people have such a great time like when they get to help out their community and just do some service to a great cause. So I heard that you were also a part of a TED Talk.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah. So UVU was hosting a TED Talk convention or event a few years ago. And so they let people apply, and I applied to give a TED Talk and was selected. And honestly, it was one of the scariest things I've ever done because they wanted it to be just timed so perfectly. And they had teleprompters, which at that point I hadn't ever used before. And they weren't working during our rehearsal. So the first time I saw the teleprompter was during the actual recording of the TED Talk. But it was a really cool experience. And I talked about what happy people talk about. After interviewing hundreds and thousands of people, what are the commonalities that I see? What do happy people focus on? And so that's what I talked about. My grandmother died by suicide when I was 10. And I always wondered, and I wish I could go back in time and talk to her more, but I always wondered if there were things I could have done to help her be more happy. What led to her feeling so unhappy and feeling like she didn't have other options. And so it just led me to be a really curious person and to really listen to people, both with what they say with their words and also with their body language, because we communicate with both verbal and nonverbal. And I just started paying attention to people who I thought really seemed happy in what it is that they talk about, and what I'll tell you what they don't talk about. They don't talk about what's going wrong, and they don't talk bad about other people. That doesn't lead to happiness. Right. But talking about what you're grateful for does lead to happiness. Talking about the future, talking about ideas, speaking highly of others. All of these things are things happy people talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we're going to move on to our final question. And on the podcast, it is known as the big question. Are you ready?
Here we go. Yes.
All right. What advice would you give to younger generations that would need help on mental care, or if they want to join in the career of being a journalist and writing articles?
Okay. Advice I would give. I think one of the most important traits in life is to be a curious person. And when I'm going to hire interns and employees at my company, I'm always looking for someone with curiosity, because, if you don't have curiosity, you'll sit in a long meeting and think it's boring, or you'll watch the news and think it's boring. But if you're curious, you'll be like, and you start thinking of questions. And I wonder why that, and I wonder where that came from. And I wonder why she chose that necklace or why he's wearing that tie. If you become a curious person, life just lights up for you. And I think that's the most important trait for a journalist. But I also think it's a really important trait in life to just be really curious, to always be thinking of questions. One of my bosses when I was younger, he told me that when he interviews someone for a job, and then at the end, he'll be like, hey, do you have any more questions? And if they don't ask any questions, he wouldn't hire them. That was like what he wanted, people who asked questions back and were thinking and curious. And so I think that's a really important trait. And I also think it helps us with our you mentioned mental health and all of that. I think it helps us to get out of ourselves, to be curious about other people, to stop worrying about ourselves and if people like us and how bad we're feeling. But if we're curious about the world around us and the people around us, you can't help but forget your own worries and just see the good and the possibilities all around you. And it's an exciting way to be. So I think being curious is my best piece of advice going forward, to be someone who asks questions and thinks of questions.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and answer.
You're welcome. It's been fun.
Yeah. Right. That's all we have for you guys on the 3 Peaks podcast. We hope to see you guys soon later on the trail.